house is worth whatever it's worth, right? Whoever sells it. Wrong. I'm Charlie. Welcome to Moving Home with Charlie, and thank you for coming.
Charlie Landing grew up in Sussex, is the founder of Best Agent and presenter of Moving Home with Charlie.
If you want to find one of these guys, look out for those compassionate professionals. All estate agents are not the same.
So Charlie, what would be your advice for people interested in buying new builds right now?
Don't overpay. Do buy, but don't overpay. That's why I say disregard the guff. Read into the numbers and look, and it's buried. The bad news is buried in the small print, okay?
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Property Press Awards.
They may or may not be telling the truth, but you should form your own view. Get out and view, get out and view, get out and view. You cannot be in a position to make offers and have the offers accepted if you're not viewing. So be out there viewing. Pay attention to the back of the class. If you've not been watching my videos, I did one just a couple of days ago. Disregard the guff, guys. Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to my subscribers and followers, and a special welcome to any new subscribers and followers this evening. This is Moving Home with Charlie. I'm Charlie, and this evening I am very excited to have a guest on who is going to spill the beans from behind the murky curtain of what happens behind in some estate agency companies. Because as any of you who pay attention to that opening intro will have noticed, one of the things I often try and get the point across is that all agents are not the same. And a lot of people make the mistake of thinking that agents are the same. And if you think all agents are the same and you're selling, you will end up choosing the wrong agent for the wrong reasons, which means you'll probably either not sell your home at all, or be stuck with an agent that can't sell your home, or end up having to sell it for much less money than you could have otherwise got for it. That is the mistake people make when they think, well, they're all the same anyway. My house is worth the same no matter who sells it, so I'll just go and pick the cheapest one because they're all just going to put it on Rightmove and that's it. Such a mistake. Such a massive mistake. I mean, a life-changingly bad mistake if you get it badly wrong when you need to move and you then can't. And what I'm really interested about with this evening's guest, who, by the way, I haven't actually spoken to before this evening. We've been messaging for quite a while, but we haven't actually spoken before this evening. We had a quick chat just before the live stream started. Is that he's hopefully going to back up my view from the coalface about what it's really like for agents. And not only the fact that not all agents are the same, that sometimes there are people who work in companies who are required by their employer to do things that they're not comfortable with. And therefore, sometimes when you're dealing with agents who are doing things that you don't like, it's what they are required to do by their employer. It's not necessarily something you should judge the individual for. We'll hear about that in a minute. But I want to give you my quick background so that you understand. I've spent 20-something years with estate agents as clients, estate agents of all sizes, right? National corporates, regional corporates, large independents, small independents, and even one-man bands. And I've seen the best and the worst of the behavior of all of them. And there is this broad spectrum of how good and bad estate agents can be. But before I even got into that, there was a period in my life, my late teens and early 20s, when I had a lot of close friends who'd gone to work at Foxtons, the famous London estate agent. Back then, they only had 5 offices. They were just a small, medium-sized independent, I suppose. And I used to meet up with my friends who worked at Foxtons after work. I had no involvement in the property industry at that point, so it was just interesting to hear what they were going through. But I can remember to this day the things that they were trained to do and the things that they were trained to say in order to win people's business and the strategies that they were required to follow. And this is not a reflection of Foxtons today, but I'm going to tell you what it was like back then. The instruction managers, the valuation managers were told back then, you say whatever you have to say to get the instruction, and you sign them into the sole agency contract so that they are stuck with us, and then we'll get them to bring the price down. Tell them whatever you need to hear, to tell them whatever they need to hear to get the business, because their strategy back then, Foxton's strategy in the 90s was list everything. Say whatever you need to. So we've got the biggest inventory. That'll bring the most buyers. Then the ones we do sell at a high fee, we will sell at a good price. And they only sold about 1 in 4 of the properties that they listed back then. But I can remember good people going to work for that company when they were young and impressionable and easily led. And just, they thought, okay, that's what you do. That's the way it works. And they had, I remember once in particular, a friend of mine going, When's a good time to buy? Now. When's a good time to sell? Now. It's always a good time to buy. It's always a good time to sell. That's always the answer that you give. And the other thing that we're told to say at all times is that right from the very first conversation that you're having with a buyer, you are negotiating. You are prepping them for the fact that they're going to have to pay asking price. It's always, always, always. Everything you say right from the get-go is, well, it's asking price if you want to buy the property. It's asking price if you want to buy the property. With no explanation, no strategy, nothing other than just a blunt sort of hammer message the whole time. So, and I had clients who were large corporate clients they didn't only treat their customers like that, they treated their suppliers like that as well. And there's one of London's largest estate agents today, used to be one of my clients for a long time back in the day. And it was an unpleasant experience for me. I was treated very badly by them. I'm not going to name them. It wasn't Foxtons. I ended up in court with Foxtons over something else. But there was another company that's one of the largest ones today. And it comes down to the culture and ethos of the owners and directors of those businesses. It really does. And you see the personality of the leaders of those businesses permeate through their company. And that's why, for example, Douglas and Gordon, which had more offices than Foxtons back in those days, was actually a wonderful company, not only to work for, but also to be a supplier to, which I was. And they treated their customers well. And they did very well. And they're very successful because the leader back then. So this is the point, right? Every estate agency is different. And it reflects the culture of its leaders. And without further ado, I'm now going to bring Scott, who's patiently sitting in the wings, and introduce him. Now, Scott, are you there? Can you hear me?
I can. Good evening, Charlie. Thanks for having me on.
Scott. So, Scott, I'm just going to give a brief introduction. So you contacted me because you wanted to come and talk to my audience about the way your journey through estate agency, where you started, where you got to, what you didn't like about it, and where you've ended up now as a result. So let's just start with, how long ago, how many years have you been an estate agent? When did you start out?
So I started in 2011, so quite a while back now.
Yeah, 12 years ago. And you started off as a negotiator, sales negotiator?
Yeah, came in as a sales negotiator for a corporate, yeah.
Okay, and are we allowed to know which corporate that was?
Yeah. So I started under the Countrywide sort of brand.
Yeah,
so I started under Bairstow Eves and Taylor's.
Right.
Sort of.
So which at the time, Countrywide was the largest, wasn't it then? It was the
correct.
largest chain of estate agents in the country.
Yeah.
And so you were a negotiator, which means that you were just taking people on viewings, trying to get offers and get offers agreed and to tie up deals. But at that point, initially, you weren't going and taking properties on, were you?
No, I wasn't a valuer at that stage.
So how long was it before you became a valuer?
6 months.
Okay, wow, that's pretty good. That's fast. That's fast progression. Okay, and so I think that's what we'd all really love to talk about this evening is what was expected of you as a valuer, what you were told, and what you'd like to share with everyone so that they can whenever they're talking to agents from large companies, and again, not all large companies are the same, right? Some are better than others. And even when you do have a company which as a policy is not perhaps doing very well, there are still individuals that you want to work with even in those companies. So, okay, so you became a branch manager, and what was that like? What was it like to start with?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I started quite young. I say young, I was, what was I at the time, 20, 25 at the time. And yeah, exciting. I'd dotted around and done a few different jobs up until that point, as a lot of us do, up to sort of our mid-20s. Then just pretty much fell into it, to be honest. I'd sold holidays and stuff prior to that. And a friend of mine said, you seem to like your sales, you're into sales. Why don't you come and try a estate agency? The rest is history, as I would say, from there. But it was exciting to me. And going back to what you were saying, I was one of those naive people that was taught, this is how you do it. This works. This is what you need to learn. And at that stage in my career, and I suppose my life, it was what I was looking for. It was structure. I could see a career path. I went to Lister valuer within 6 months. Was a branch manager probably 6 months thereafter that as well. Just purely because I enjoyed the job, I had a passion for the job, and not everybody does have that. So I think the one thing I would say with corporates they're very good for training you. You will get, it's a bit like going in the army, you will get trained very quickly. But kind of alluding back to what you were saying at the beginning, that enthusiasm does tend to dwindle fairly quickly, purely because of the way that you're being asked to do things. But going back to what you were saying, I was enjoying it, and I did enjoy a lot of my career, but I think towards the end, I just started to see that there was a different way. But Yeah, I absolutely loved the industry when I started. I still do now, and I think that's what probably moved me up so quick.
Cool. Okay, so what we all want to hear is, what are the things that you were asked to do and expected to do that you weren't comfortable with?
I think it's probably more the ways that you're expected to do things than the actual sort of method, for want of a better word. So, obviously you're expected to go and put houses on the market as a valuer. Of course you are. That's your job. But like you were saying, you alluded to it being, I think you said it was in the 90s or something. Believe you me, it's still the same now. That is still the same ethos and mentality now. You do tell the client whatever you need to tell them to get it on the books. You don't really look at much comparable evidence unless you need to. Just get it on, just get it on, just get it on. We'll get it reduced in 20, 24 weeks. If it's a £200,000 house on paper, which is the value, I would argue, if it's on paper. If they've got 3 agents going out and you need to say it's worth 250, say it's worth 250, find the naive sellers, and then we'll batter them for a price reduction. And in 12 weeks, we'll have them down to where they need to be and we'll sell it. But the problem with that is, from a consumer's point of view, that's a long 12 weeks of not a lot of attention, a frustrating period of time for them. And ultimately, I think you probably feel a bit ripped off when the agent that you were going to go with told you 200, you're now at 200 with the agent you didn't really want to go with. And all of a sudden, I'm getting viewings now. Oh, what's this all about? And that's where the light bulb just turn on for a lot of people, I think. So that's one thing. Sole agents.
I'd like to just recap those points. So you were going out and saying, even though you knew it was a 200 grand property, you were saying 250 to win the business, but then you were tying them into a 20 or 24 week contract.
Yeah. You could go a bit deeper than that, Charlie, on that. It depends on the situation, and that's something else you're taught. If you're going out and you sold the neighbours and you're the only agent going out, which is why corporates will ask you, have you had any other valuations? What do you think it's worth? Oh, well, I think it's 200. Why do you think it's 200? Well, so-and-so's been out and valued it. They know they've got competition then. They know they can't win it on anything else because they're either too lazy or they're not competent enough in their own ability to win it on what it's all about, which is relationships. So they'll price it higher. Whereas if you said, no, I'm only using you, I'm buying through you, for example, I'm happy to use you, then it'll probably come on at what it's worth. And that's why you see such a difference in pricing.
That's really interesting. Hang on a second. I've never heard an agent say it that way before. So you're saying that if they're buying through you and they've had a good experience of buying through you, so they're deciding to sell through you anyway, you aren't competing on asking price or valuation. Therefore, what you're saying is you're then free to price it sensibly, because you haven't got to
worry about losing it.
Right. So I really want everyone to understand this point, right? So put yourself in that position. Estate agents don't overvalue for fun or because they want to, because that just means they've got to wait a long time for the price to come down before they can sell it. They only overvalue if necessary, because you, the seller, are choosing based on who gives you the highest valuation. And if you're not basing on who gives you the highest valuation, but who you like the most, then they're in a better position to price it sensibly and sell it faster. Which reminds me actually of a story I want to tell about why estate agents never quote fees over the phone or until a valuation happens. I've had a friend of mine give me a great story. He said, I have to measure how much of a pain in the arse they are. If they're a really, really cooperative, sensible, intelligent seller, I'll give them a lower fee. If they're going to be a complete pain in my bum, I'm going to have to deal with them for months. It's going to be higher. It's going to be more work. And I have to.
I'll add to that, Charlie. So there's 3 things that we look at. Okay, so you've got vendor motivation, you've got fee, and you've got marketing price. You have to have 2 of the 3.
Okay.
If you've only got 1, if you've got vendor motivation but the price is too high, well, they're motivated, they'll bring it down. Right. If you've got a good fee but they're motivated, it will probably sell. If you've got a good fee and a good price but they're not that motivated, it will probably sell anyway because the price is right and you'll get your fee. So you have to get 2 of the 3. But yeah, you're absolutely right. You will weigh it up. You'll go and see them and you'll speak to them. And again, if they're, next door sold at 300, I want 400. I won't work with people like that. I won't. The difference is I don't get paid now to spout my guff, as you like to say. I don't, So it's either coming on at the right price. I want to help you. I'll give you a good service. I'll look after you. But I'm not going to waste my time and pay for professional photography. If you want to go on at 50 grand more than you're going to get for it, go and list it with a corporate.
So, as a lister or valuer, were you paid per instruction? Did you actually get a bonus for listing a property?
So this is very interesting as well, because I get this every day. People say, well, why would they overvalue it? Because they want to sell it. What you need to understand is that there's a few different prongs to this. First of all, yeah, of course, they don't get paid on your house if they don't sell it. Of course they don't. But if you drill that down, every member of staff in that branch manager, lister, negotiator, will all get about 3% of your fee. So if you've got a 200 grand house and you'll pay them 2 grand, they're going to get 60 quid. Okay. That's before tax. Okay. So are they going to be that bothered about £40 after tax? Sadly, unfortunately, probably not. What they are more bothered about is their boss on their back the next morning when they're going through the morning diary going, right, you went to that property yesterday. Is it on the books? No. Why didn't you get it on? What are you doing wrong? Maybe I need to come out with you and teach you how to list, embarrassing you in front of everybody. They'd rather just get it on. People don't actually ever really say, oh, that's a bit rich. They just say, well done, we'll get that down. And then they move on to the next one.
We'll get that down. This is something else I really want everyone to understand, is that a lot of people think that estate agents like to put prices up for some reason, but actually that goes against the ability to actually earn a fee from selling it. And, there's a lot more work goes into getting a vendor to reduce their price.
Yeah. I mean, again, if they see it as an easier win, they'd rather go down that road, because it's then, well, you couldn't reduce it. I got it on. If you can't reduce it as a negotiator, I got it on as a value. But, it's all very grey and there's a lot of different elements to it. But going back to it, so the fact is they don't get paid a lot for doing it. A lot of them, unfortunately, are quite unmotivated due to the environment that they work in. So, there's a lot of different facts that go into why they actually do it, but they don't get paid that much in it. And what you've also got to remember is when you're dealing with these corporates, I mean, a lot of them have got a pipeline of 70 houses sold. Is 1 or 2 houses here or there going to make much difference to them? No.
This is so important. This is, again, I mean, there are occasional exceptions, but generally speaking, an agency with hundreds of properties in their window isn't going to care about it. It's like they'll sell the easy ones, and there's just no point in going to the difficulty, which is why when you go to an agent that you like and they've got what appears to be a much more modest number of properties, your listing is going to matter much more to them.
Yeah, and also as well, there's something else that people miss a lot. What you've got to remember is that if they get that house on at 300 and it's only worth 250, you'll think, well, they're not going to sell it. They're not. But what they are going to get is they are going to get people wanting to view it that have got houses to sell. They are going to get people viewing it that need mortgages at some point. So even if somebody views it and says it's too much money, okay, I appreciate that. Let me see if I can find you one more suited. Oh, by the way, we've got a house to sell. Let me come and have a look at yours. You get in the door first. So it's not just about that sort of, one house. It's about the bigger snowball around it. And, that's what they always say. Boards breed boards and all the rest of it. And if we haven't got it, we can't sell it. And that's great. There will always be a place for vendors, in my opinion, that want that type of agent, because there are always unrealistic vendors in this world, unfortunately, that you can put comps in front of them, comparables in front of them, and they won't take no notice. And they can go with the corporates. Where it really gets to me is when you've got genuine people that are being ripped off and messaging me saying, I'm not getting any viewing, Scott. What is going on? How long have you got left on your contract? 8 weeks. I've already reduced twice. And I say, and I go out and I speak to them and say, if I'd have seen you and spoke to you when I spoke to them, I'd have came on with you at 50 grand less.
So I need to clarify with everyone right now. So right now, you are an independent, self-employed estate agent, right?
Yeah.
So you earn. How much do you earn if you don't sell a house?
Absolutely nothing.
Right. So how much is it in your interest to overvalue stuff?
Yeah, it's not. And that's why the conversation I have with people is, look, if you're going to be motivated and listen to the market, you can start where you want. I will tell you where I think you should start.
Yeah.
As long as you're realistic with me and we put it on at 30 grand above what it should be, if we work together and in 6 weeks we've not got there, then let's look at a reduction and get it down. So we'll play your game to start with, but if it doesn't work out, we've got to play mine. If you say that to somebody, a lot of the time they'll say, let's just go on a realistic price. And so I've got no interest whatsoever in overvaluing. I get it all the time, particularly in a changing market that we're in at the moment. XYZ estate agents have been out and told me it's worth 300 because they sold one last summer at 290. And I go, okay, what rock have you been living under since about October? And that's fine. They're more than welcome. But in answer to your question, it's absolutely no interest of mine. I want to work with good people who want to move, who can see the the relationship benefit of an estate agent, because that's all it's about, is relationships.
Oh, absolutely.
And they're the sort of people that I want to work with, you know, and I will help them, and they will speak to me any time of the day on the phone.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm about.
Whereabouts are you based?
So I'm in Peterborough, best place in the country.
Okay. So the thing that I've learnt throughout my 25 years or so working with agents is that the single most important factor in a successful sale is the quality of the relationship between the owner and the agent. If that relationship is good and based in trust, not just necessarily integrity is that as well, but trust in an agent's professional skill and ability to do the job, as well as trust in the person, then when decisions come along that have to be made, the vendor is more able to go along with you and go, yeah, okay, if that's what you think, I trust you, and we'll get it done. It's amazing how often it is the case that you get these sellers who go, oh, I don't need anyone telling me how to sell my house. I'd probably do it myself if I had time. And so, you know, just I want you to do what I say. There's no point in hiring a dog and barking yourself. It's just stupid. You know,
they're the ones that will go on with the corporates because they will think that they can get more than their house is worth 9 times out of 10.
I've got to remind everyone else about something else. I got into this industry originally because I didn't think estate agents were necessary anymore now that the internet was here. I did not see, I had bought and sold a flat, and I thought, well, we don't need agents anymore. And I genuinely didn't see the value at that point. And it was through trying that approach to business that I started to learn, actually started working with agents and learnt and came around to the other side and go, what's more important? Like saving a few £100 or £1,000 on a fee, or moving on with your life? You need to move on with your life at a better price and not having to deal with all of the nightmares. I mean, it's
I get that sometimes where people say to me, oh, you know, I could sell it myself. And I say, okay, just make sure that you check 2 weeks after you've agreed the offer that the local search has been applied for. And they go, no, exactly.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Well, local search. I mean,
selling it, don't get me wrong, you can sell a property subject to contract very easily. Particularly the last couple of years, you could have put it on Facebook, but it's like the old, my neighbour wants to buy it. Okay, let me qualify it, and he's got 5 houses in Spain to sell. You're not selling it to him, you know.
Yeah. Exactly. So, what are the tricks people should watch out for? What are the warning signs that sellers should be looking out for when talking? Because the thing that I hear a lot from my viewers the most when it comes to choosing agents is, we hear you, Charlie. We understand that actually all agents are not the same, and we've got to choose a good one. But we've met a few now and they all seem okay, and we don't really know how to pick. What are the tricks that people probably fall for but need to look out for? I mean, first of all, do you agree with me that they shouldn't sign a long sole agency agreement?
No, definitely not. So obviously, you know, this will go out to probably a lot of clients that I'm dealing with at the moment. So nothing I'm saying is any different to what I would say in an appointment. My views may differ on that, on the sole agency length, and I'll give you my reasons why. So I'm an honest and good agent. I ask for 12 weeks. The reason that I ask for 12 weeks is that I don't charge anything for upfront marketing. Right. So I offer every property professional photography, drone videos, social media walkthrough videos. They cost me on average £400. And if the client turns around and says, oh, sorry, I don't want to move anymore, I don't see a penny of that back. So if I'm willing to do that and we're going on at the right price, then I ask for 12 weeks. At the same time, to be honest, I don't really get people ever really withdrawing because we've got that relationship. Yeah. The worst that happens is people say, I'm coming off. I appreciate you tried, but it's not going to happen and I'm going to stay put. So, but going back to the tricks, you will always get situations where you've got 2 or 3 that are as good as each other as far as you can see. Obviously, it's a bit like a job interview, isn't it? It's very difficult. Everybody's always going to talk the talk in the interview. You won't know if they can walk the walk until they start the job, and they can look the best in the interview and be the worst in the job. I would say, for me, I think where I've sort of built a good level of business is that localness, that local feel, people that know the area. That's definitely one thing. You want somebody that's local. You don't want somebody that lives 20 miles away, ideally, just purely because they will know the area, they'll know the amenities, they'll have local contacts. Be careful again of the overvaluing. I think you need to be looking at comparable evidence and looking at it properly. So an agent that's coming in should be showing you, this is why I think this is the price. Yeah. And if you're just going to go with one that doesn't even show you comparables, then sadly you've got nobody to blame but yourself. But sometimes you can be a bit naive to that, maybe. Yeah. But so make sure the pricing's right. make sure they are offering you good marketing. Look at their listings on Rightmove. You know, are they using an iPhone? You know, have they got bins in their front shop?
The quality of presentation is absolutely critical.
It's so important, and it's so overlooked. And I think it's because we're coming out of a different market. You could have got away with it in 2021. You literally could have put a front shot and it would have sold. That's gone now. Those days have gone. So look at their listings on Rightmove. Has every property got a floor plan? Are they professional photography, or at least to a good standard in terms of the photography? Is the description on the listing pointing out the key selling points to your home? Is it talking about the local amenities within the area? So do some due diligence on that side of things. In terms of what to look out for as well, be careful of an agent that might ring you up the day after evaluation and say, oh, I've got Mr. Smith. He's really keen to view. Can I bring him round? Be careful of Mr. Smith. Everybody's got Mr. Smith.
Have you seen, Scott? Have you seen my video, my documentary of my colleague Sam selling?
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, that was
exactly
so
that happened. Exactly.
Yeah, I know. And I'll tell you why, in my opinion, they do it. Because again, I'll be honest. You know, I've been there. I've done it myself. I had to. The reason they do it is because it's almost a I'm still here, and let me bring this round. And what I'll do is I'll bring the contract with me. And if he doesn't want to buy it, we'll sign up anyway because I'm there and you love me and we're good friends and blah blah blah. So it's all sales techniques and that's fine. You know, it's a sales industry. So pricing, yeah, be careful of one-off contracts. Whilst we're on the one-off viewings, this is something I get all the time as well. Oh well, so and so estate agent's been out and they've got 5 people that want to view. How many people have you got? I think people have got this conception that every agent's got different buyers in their drawer and it's not the 80s anymore. It doesn't work like that. I always say to people, do you know who's got the most viewers? Rightmove, and we're all on it. So that is a complete smokescreen. So don't go with somebody that tells you, brings a list of buyers, drives me crazy. Look at my list of buyers that I've got. We've all got those buyers. That's the reality of it. So again, don't select an agent based on the viewers that they claim they've got because it's a misnomer. It doesn't make no difference at all. So I think really it's just about, you know, their level of experience, how long they've been in it, how comfortable you are with them. Talk to them about the market. You know, if you're like me and you want to be realistic, see if they know what's going on in the economy. Do they genuinely know what the base rate is at the moment?
Right.
Do they know what a mini budget is? How much life experience have they got? Because if you're dealing with somebody that doesn't know what a mini budget is and doesn't know what a base rate means, then I'd be a bit, you know, so it depends how deep you want to dig, but there's a lot of different things to look for. Well,
so I've always said, right, all agents are not the same. And I generally think that there are problems in corporate culture. Not all, there are some good ones, but a lot of the large corporate, there's some real problems in culture where, again, as you said, they'll list properties just to get inquiries that help them sell mortgages and other things, even if they don't sell a house. I had a seller very recently who was watching this channel and he went out to pick an agent, and the person he liked the most was the listings manager for a corporate, and she tried to sign him up to a 20-week contract, and he said, no, I will go with you and I'll pay the fee you're asking, but I won't commit to more than 4 weeks. And she accepted it, and they sold his house for over asking really quickly. So he was right in his choice of the individual, and he disregarded the brand, which was a large corporate brand. But what I'd love to hear more from you about is the really poor practices that go on in some of these large. I mean, it's true, isn't it? Because the really large volume corporates, they're battering each other on fees, so the fees are horribly low. So they've got to make up the income elsewhere with referrals of those other services, which means that, you know, you're pushing peripheral services on them that might not be the best quality just because of the referral income. I mean, I heard a horrible story recently about. It was a Connells branch. I heard the story. In fact, it got into the Times, where they sold the client's property. They had it was 300 grand asking price. They had an asking price offer from someone with a mortgage in principle, but they didn't get it through them. And they had someone who'd come through their in-house broker offering 285, and they'd sold it to the 285 buyer and the 300 buyer. So they basically let the seller down by 15 grand so they can make their mortgage commission. Now that to me is fraud. I mean, you've just done someone out of £15,000 to make an extra 200 quid commission or whatever it is and so just what are the other tricks behind the scenes, without naming names or anything else, but the things that go on in corporations that, you know, that most staff don't like but are required to do?
Yeah, well, that there is one. I think that's been going on since records began in terms of agents not putting offers forward from somebody who's not going to use their mortgage services to somebody that is. So what would happen with that is, again, a corporate agent would have what's called a ready to move list. Okay, so if you're on my ready to move list, Charlie, you come and see my mortgage advisor, and when I get a new house on the market, you're going to know about it first, because I know that you're pre-qualified with my mortgage advisor. Yeah, Scott, but I've got an AIP here with Nationwide. Isn't that just as good? Well, we can't control it, and I can't be too sure of that. So just come and check with my mortgage advisor, and then you can go on my ready to move list.
So that's called conditional selling. Yeah. And if that was captured on camera, that would be prosecutable, and that agent would be convicted of that, because that's basically fraud. Conditional selling. So guys, anyone watching this is especially for buyers, right? If you're watching this and you're ever sitting with an agent, they say, look, I know you've got a mortgage from somewhere else, but I can get you onto my VIP list or my ready to move list or equivalent if you talk to my in-house guy. That is illegal. It is illegal. And it's a horrible trap that people shouldn't fall into. Okay. And it's also horribly unfair. And it's actually also doing a disservice to the sellers as well.
Yeah, massively. Yeah, absolutely. Because like you say, their only priority then is to ensure that buyer buys that property, not that they get the vendor the most amount of money. And again, it works the same with solicitors. If you've got two offers on the table at the same time, and you've asked both offers, do you want me to get you a quote for solicitors? And one's gone, oh yeah, I need a solicitor sorting out. Yeah. And the other one's gone, I've got a solicitor, I don't need your solicitors. We used to get it with investors all the time, because obviously they buy properties all the time. So they've got their own solicitors. It's always cash. Yeah. And just get somebody better on that we can get something more out of. And you're right, it is illegal, but more to the point, it's very disingenuous to the vendor, because ultimately, and that's why it's home now. So I actually had an evaluation yesterday, and the guys were asking me about solicitors. So I suspect that maybe there's been a bit of a fingers burnt episode in the background at some point, because they were specifically asking me, which is quite rare for somebody to say, are you in bed with a particular solicitor as such, for want of a better term? And I said, look, the way that I work is I don't force anybody to do anything. If you ask me for a solicitor quote, I will tell you, these are my solicitors. I refer to them because they're good. Yeah. I could have, when I started my business, I had, people all over me. Can I come in with your mortgages? Can I come in with your solicitors? Some of the referral fees were crazy, but it was because they're sausage factory conveyancers. They're terrible. And I'd rather make 50 quid than 500 £500 if my vendor's going to get a better service. And ultimately, if it takes too long and falls through, I don't take anything anyway.
Exactly. Now, listen, we've got quite a few questions. I'd like to take a few questions if I can. Quick response. Eddie Ward, it's not that it's unregulated, because what we're discussing right here is already against the law. There is a law to prevent this happening. What happens is the agents are getting away with it, not getting caught, not getting shopped for it. That's why. But it's not because it's unregulated, right? This particular problem is already regulated. But here's the first question I'd like to put to you, Scott. Dinkleberry on YouTube says, how can they get away with not putting offers forward, though?
Okay, so I'll give you an example. Okay, so let's say I've got two offers on the table. Okay, I've got Mr. Smith, who's using my mortgage services, and he's offering 185,000, and I've got Mrs. Jones, who's not using my mortgage services, and she's offering 200,000. I say to Mr. Smith, well, I'm going to put your offer forward. I need to see proof of your deposit, and I'll just clarify with the mortgage advisor that you're good to go because you've been to our in-house mortgage services. Mrs. Jones, can you send me your AIP, your agreement in principle, provisional mortgage, proof of your deposit? No problem. I'm on the phone to my vendor. Mrs. Vendor, I have got an offer on the table at 185. Really good buyer, really strong. Been in to see the mortgage advisor. Really happy with what he's provided. He's done everything very quickly. Now, I have got 200,000 on the table as well, but I'll be honest, I can't particularly vouch for the finances yet because he's not been in to see the mortgage advisor. So I don't know if you maybe, it's how you sell it. It's sales. Yeah. It's how you put it across.
So they're getting away with it by mentioning the offer, but basically making it sound like it.
Fudging. Yeah. You're fudging it. And it goes back to relationship, because again, like you said, if the agent believes everything, if the vendor believes everything that agent's saying, then they're thinking, well, Scott didn't really trust the 200. To be honest, if it was that much of a difference, normally vendors would say, get that 200 qualified. It happens probably more where you've got maybe a £5 difference, because then it's a bit easier to brush under the carpet. If it's a 15k difference, then they would literally just not put it forward. And I've had instances where I've had people ringing in to speak to the branch manager because the person that offered 200's gone around the house and knocked at the door and said, "Why did you not accept my 200?" And all hell's broke loose. So it does happen, believe me.
Right. Okay, it's interesting. Right, here's a couple more questions. Now, this is quite a tough one. So this is Samantha, and her comment is, if you want to sell your house, do your own viewings. Estate agents are second-hand car salesmen. Estate agents are liars. What's your response to that? Because, I mean, I don't agree with this point, but a lot of people do. A lot of people have had really bad experiences, and they've been genuinely hurt and disadvantaged, and they're angry, seriously pissed off with how they've been treated by agents, and this is how they feel. So what would you say to someone who's had that experience and has this sentiment that Samantha's got, to acknowledge the experience that they've had, but point out that they're not all the same, and the mistake that this attitude can lead to?
So you've got the wrong agent, because you've gone with the agent that you've probably selected on price. And again, I get that all the time. We used to get it all the time. Oh, they were rubbish because they couldn't sell it. And when they did the viewings, they weren't pointing out that we've had a water softener fitted in the kitchen. Listen, right, you're on for too much money. Doesn't matter what an estate agent says to somebody. Yeah. If the house is too much money or that person doesn't want to buy it, you can do it until the cows. It's not going to happen. Yeah. So I think you've got the wrong agent. I had this conversation coincidentally with somebody today. Got a viewing booked in. She said, "Look, last agent, I did all the viewings myself." There's two elements to this. Okay, I'll give you an example of the first problem with you doing your own viewings. And this is a personal thing that happened to me. So when me and my wife bought our first house, we got to about week 10 of the horrible long process of buying the property. The buyer at the bottom of the chain went into their solicitors to sign off and get ready to exchange. And we had about a week where we thought they were going to pull out, because the solicitor sat down with them and they said, "Oh, you haven't actually got 2 parking spaces, by the way," because they said, "Oh, I've got 2 parking." "No, you haven't. Who told you that?" Well, when we did the viewing, the agent sent us on our own. And the lady that lived there said, "That's my parking space," and I was parked there. So I thought they meant that was her parking space. Okay, so that's just a very small example. You're not a salesperson. Also, what you've got to remember as well is it can get quite confrontational. So it's all well and good you saying that, but if a buyer turns around to you and goes, "Right, I really like it. You want it 200,000. Will you take 180?" What are you going to say as a receptionist or as a veterinary nurse? You're going to go, we know how to deal with offers. We know how to create urgency. We know how to talk about what the vendor situation is. You need an agent to do them. The reason that your agent is poor is probably because your house isn't selling because it's too much money, or that person just didn't want to buy it. Houses sell themselves most of the time. If they're priced right and the marketing's right, they will sell themselves.
Sadiq Mohammed asked a question: who do you complain to? Who is someone called the property ombudsman? So basically the property ombudsman, it's a legal requirement. All agents have to be a member of a property redress scheme. So if you've got grounds or even suspicions of a complaint, you complain to the agent first. If they don't satisfy you, then you complain to the property ombudsman. So there is redress. A lot of people don't know that. Steve says, as a buyer, arguably I should see the agent's mortgage advisor so my low offer would be accepted. He's got a good point.
Say that again. As a buyer, I arguably should see the agent's mortgage advisor lower. So my low. What is he saying, that use it as a benefit?
Yeah, you have to pay less.
Well, yeah, but it's not really what we're promoting, is it?
No, but I'm not suggesting this. I'm not recommending this. But what he's saying is that, God, if the agent selling the house is going to put forward a lower offer by using your in-house mortgage advisor.
No, I'll be honest. It's I've had friends that have bought and sold houses, and a lot of them always ask me for tips and stuff. And I have said to people before, if you want that house desperately, if there's a lot of competition on it, use everything they chuck at you, because it's going to make it more likely that you're going to get it. I'm not talking about underselling things. I'm not saying you're going to get it less than what somebody else is willing to pay. But if you've got 2 people at the same price, be the one that's using their mortgage services.
Yeah, that's true. Or also be the one who's got your conveyance already lined up, and you can say with your offer, if you accept my offer today, I'll order my search pack today, and that'll take 4 to 6 weeks off the whole.
Yeah, I've seen a bit of that of what you're doing. I think we need to talk about it at some point.
It's very, very cool. It's very
yeah.
cool. Right, a couple more questions. This is a general question. I'd just like to know what your answer to this question is. Incredible Met says, why do 99% of estate agents give the rest a bad name?
Okay, I think because predominantly and most of estate agents in the UK are corporate agents. So I've noticed as I've worked in probably 4 or 5 different towns and cities around Cambridgeshire that the best ones in the town, there's normally only one surrounded by probably 4 other big 8 corporates. They tend to be the most popular. They tend to give the best service, the most honest advice. And I think that it's the others that work in the ways that we're discussing that give agents a bad name. And I think you've also got to remember that bad news always sticks over good news. So, you know, nobody's really ever going to say to their mate down the pub about me, he was amazing. I mean, they might do, but if I ripped them off, they'd definitely be telling 5 people rather than 1. So
that's very, very true. That's very, very true. I know that, like, I know I can give first-hand testimony to the fact that I've had agents that I've worked with. They've been my clients for years, and they are outstandingly good, and they get no recognition for it at all. And that's what makes it so hard to find. So, guys, if you do experience a really good agent, you should do everybody in where you're living a favor. Post it on social media and say, I cannot recommend this agent highly enough. They've done me proud. I'm really thrilled, really surprised. You know, don't just do the complaining and moaning about it when it's bad. Also do the good. You'll be helping other people if you do that, because one of the biggest problem honest agents have is being identified. You know, now a couple more. So Eddie Ward is asking, which agent did you used to work for? So it was Countrywide brands, and then you went to Sequence, which is a Connells brand, is that right?
Yeah. So I worked for Taylor's, Bairstow Eves, and William H. Brown, and then I did a little spurt at an independent for a 6-month period.
And William H. Brown. So did you notice a cultural difference between the Countrywide groups and the Connells groups?
No, it's very same. If anything, Connells are slightly more corporate. In terms of the way that they operate, probably 10% worse, or depending on which way you look at it. But no, very, very similar, all the same.
Yeah. Okay. Annie Anonymous says Connells around here are shocking, but seem to get shed loads of instructions from sellers. I can't fathom it. Yep. I mean, the answer is that they train them. I mean, they've got all the tricks, haven't they? Every trick up the sleeve to close an instruction.
I also think as well, it's just down to the fact that a lot of them have been in their towns and cities for a long, long time. And once you've got that monopoly, it's very difficult to pull that off of somebody. Because I get it all the time. I say, well, why are you going with them? And you actually slagged them off to me when I came to the valuation, and you're now going with them. And they say, I don't know. It's them, isn't it? Everyone knows them.
What everyone's going to understand is that if you are in the presence of a really professional, trained closer, you won't even know you're being closed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
And unless you're someone who's been through that training yourself, which I did a long, long time ago, and understand the whole psychology of closing people, right? You won't even realize it. The first thing you'll find out is what just happened. I've signed up. Don't forget, you've got a cooling off period.
Yeah, just don't sign it in the office, because that's another trick. Come into the office and sign it.
Yeah. Now, a couple more comments. Eddie, Incredible Matt is saying to Eddie Ward, it'd be better to say it's under enforced rather than under regulated. That is 100% true.
Yeah.
Okay, it is not the lack of regulation that's the problem. It's the lack of enforcement. There is close to zero enforcement of the existing estate agency regulations. More regulations will actually make the problem worse, because regulation red tape is much more onerous for small businesses than it is for the big ones. And as the red tape grows, it puts more and more small businesses out of business, and the big ones get bigger and bigger because they've got an in-house regulation department that takes care of it. So,
yeah, I mean, it's not difficult to deal with a complaint. At the end of the day, a client comes in and kicks off. You either say to them that you'll knock a bit off their fee, or they go to the TPO, and then the TPO tell you to chuck them £100. It's
right. Now, here's another comment worth. Estate agents shouldn't have a piece of both pies. Is conflict of interest. They don't. So estate agents are not paid by a buyer. estate agents, for people who are unaware, only receive payment from the seller when the property sells, unless you were daft enough to go purple bricks and give the money up front, in which case I'm afraid that's...
I think maybe what they're reflecting to there, or relating to there, should I say, is when you've got a vendor that you've sold their house and then you've got a house that they're buying. And I could kind of see the conflict of interest element to it there. You're probably right. And again, that just again goes with the under enforcement, because
well, no, hang on. Do you mean if you're buying through an agent and you choose to sell through them as well?
No, if an estate, so if I've got a house and I've sold it to somebody, and then the owner of that one, so I'm selling for that owner, and then I've got another house and the owner of that one is buying that one, I'm then controlling the vendor as a buyer, and a vendor is one of my vendors and also one of my buyers now. So I can see the conflict of interest element. It's a bit like with a solicitor. You can't have a solicitor act either side. So,
but at the same time, when you've got people handling simultaneous transactions,
I think it's more about bending the rules is what they're getting at there. And I would agree, because obviously then in your interest, you're going to get two houses rather than one. But again, if you get somebody that's pure ethos is just based on looking after people and genuinely building a good reputation in an area, and they're not just chasing an extra 50 quid here or there or an extra grand here or there, they're looking at the bigger picture. You won't have that problem, but you will with some.
So I'd like to point something out to everyone here as well, which is that all of the best agents that I've known and worked with for a long time, after they've been doing it long enough, roughly 2/3 of all their new business comes by recommendation, personal recommendation. 2/3 of their instructions walk in the door and say, so-and-so who I trust has told me you're the only person to use, I'm using you, and that's the end of it. And I tell you this because independent agents value their reputation more than individuals at a corporate who are going to change jobs and change brands. Okay, so they do care what you think about them, what you say about them, because if they're good enough, you will recommend them. And ultimately, that is the cheapest way of winning new business any agent can ever do, right? If you look after your clients so well that they do tell their friends, if you're going to sell someone, you've got to use this agent. It is worth it. Now, here's a question you're going to hate. Jimmy Davis. Charlie, is my house worth whatever I think it's worth? I mean, he's obviously joking, but
but, I actually wanted to talk about that, because I think there's actually a little bit to be said on that.
Go for it. Yeah,
I think I hear you on this channel sometimes talking about. I think you use the words, sort of general property. So a 3-bed semi in a city,
mainstream property.
Mainstream. Okay, so that statement there, you could say that, but if you've got a 3-bed semi in a city where there's another 4 for sale at 200 and you put it on at 250, you can think it's worth 250 all long. But if they're going to view one after at 200, it ain't. Now, if you live in Kent and you've got a £5 million house that never comes up available, there's a bit more of an argument, right? You've not got to worry about down valuations. You've not got to worry about all of that sort of stuff. So it's a bit more of an argument. But in general, house is only worth what somebody's willing to pay. That argument to me is just a bit grey and a bit wishy-washy. I think you could have got away with saying that a bit more in the last couple of years because it was that crazy, but it's gone back to how it should be now, which is...
Well, I mean, I don't know if you've heard when I've been giving buyers advice on how much to pay, and I was trying to tell a story that take one house that's for sale. Let's say that it's for sale at 250, and you've got 2 different buyers. One of them needs to move within 3 or 4 years and has got a 90% mortgage. The other one is buying for a long time and they've got a baby coming, so they need to get in sooner. And actually, they've got 50% deposit.
Mm-hmm.
The amounts that I would offer in those 2 situations would be different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it doesn't mean it's the same property.
It's risk appetite, isn't it?
But and is it worth the certainty premium? If you've got, I had a conversation today with a seller who's got a school deadline coming. They've got to be living in a certain area by a certain date. Otherwise, their kids won't get into the school that they want.
Yeah.
And that is nothing to do with the property market. That is a pressure deadline for that buyer. He's just sold. That's got nothing to do with house prices.
Yeah. Well, there's two types of buyers, isn't there? There's needs and there's wants. Needs are, we need a 3rd bedroom. We've already got 2 kids and the missus is pregnant again. And there's wants. Well, interest rates are 0.5% at the minute. I'll go and buy one with a bigger garden. What's changed in the last 6 to 12 months is that only the needs are now in the market. The wants have gone back on the fence. And that's why the demand has flipped, because if you don't need it, you're probably going to wait it out a bit.
Here's a great question. One coding life. Are agents taught to talk up the market? Are they told not to be realistic about the real state of the market?
Yeah.
In corporations, I would argue that's true.
Yeah, and that's another reason why I left, and it used to drive me up the wall every day. You know,
Tell us about it. Tell us about it.
I used to run my morning meetings because as a branch manager, you do, and I'd talk about, you know, for example, talking to people about being realistic within the market. You know, when you're pricing things, vendor updates based on, look, the interest rates are going up, the economy's changing. We need to have a look at, you know, where you're putting the price on this, not just chucking it on for the sake of it. But again, you know, your boss would be in for the day because they're not in your branch every day. But the one day that they are in is the day they pull you to one side and say, you're being a bit negative there. I'm not being negative. I'm being realistic. There's no point in you living in a dream world that the economy isn't in trouble and the interest rates aren't going up, because ultimately it's a load of crap. You know, that you've got to be realistic. And a lot of them are. I get it now. I had one today, a corporate agent telling somebody that the markets, they're still doing really well. They're selling everything. I looked at their listings. They've put 14 houses on last month and they've sold 3. So they ain't doing that well, are they? So that's absolute rubbish.
Okay. Eddie Ward says, what does Scott think prices? No, sorry. That's not the one I meant. This one. What does Scott's opinion of Charlie's 35% drop prediction?
Yeah, I suspected this might pull in. Got to be careful.
Let me so for people who don't know, I am predicting that house prices, when they finished falling after about 3 years since they peaked last year, so they peaked in 2022, and I predicted that they're going to hit the bottom in 2025. There'll be it's not going to be a straight line down. It's like that. And right now we're doing that. And everyone thinks, oh, they're not going to keep going down. They are, in my opinion, for reasons I won't explain now. But it's like that. And it's going to go down all the way for another couple of years because, and why do I think it's going to be that bad? I think that as a country, as a nation, most working people are going to have their incomes eviscerated. Disposable income is going to be gone. The economy is going to suffer, and there's going to be rising unemployment. There is so much financial horror coming down the line for us as an economy. Now, will the government come out with a way to avoid it? They're going to keep on trying, but I ultimately don't think it's avoidable. And that's why I think, and there is a big delay in the reporting of house prices. I think the land registry is out tomorrow morning. Actually, the latest one. I think maybe might be Thursday. But yeah, I'm saying peak to trough over 3 years, 35% on average, with regional variations. That's my. So yeah, what's your opinion of that?
Well, I think I would add is, according to Rightmove, it's highest average asking price. I saw it coming probably a bit later than you. Obviously, I was in the game. The problem when we saw it happening was obviously with August is always quiet. So I think we were probably hoping that it was just the blip that tends to happen traditionally. It hadn't happened in 20 and 2021, but we thought maybe the tradition's just back in the market and the price is going to come back. Didn't come back. Quarten came in, went absolutely mad, and then it kind of got going again in February. I'm 50-50. There definitely has been a drop. There's no doubt about it. The people that were arguing about that 3 months ago all of a sudden have gone very quiet. And I think now I'm 50-50 on whether we drop down a bit more and then settle, or whether we've done that and now we're doing that, and then we'll do that in 5 years, or whether we've done that, we're doing that, and then we're going to do that. I'm 50-50. It could happen. You know, I am, and I'm realistic with people, and I tell them that. And I'm with you. I think at the end of the day, regardless of what the market's doing, if you need to move and you need more space and you can afford it, and you've got, like you say, you've got good loan to value, you've got a buffer there, you've got a bit of a savings account, you've got good job security, you should still move. You don't want to be cramped up in a 2-bed if you've got 3 kids. But don't go and do it at the moment, in my opinion, if you're just doing it for the sake of being able to show your mates that you've now got a double garage and you've got to pay $1,000 extra a month and you're going to put yourself under pressure. Be sensible with what you're doing. So I don't know. There's obviously arguments on both sides of whether we are going to stay where we are now, because it's already dropped 10%. I've seen that. You lot wouldn't have seen that because you've not seen the land reg yet. You probably won't see that until the end of the year. They're that slow at the minute. They're so delayed. But the reality is I've already dropped 10%. I think by the end of the year, we'll probably have another 5 off. The interesting thing is I think we've probably had more of a drop anything in the top end of the market than the bottom.
Yeah.
And that's purely because rents are so high that people are still buying because it's still cheaper to do that. But the argument on situation A and situation B. Situation A is we're pretty much near the bottom now and we settle down for another year. Is that obviously if inflation drops off drastically, I have heard rumours that it's going to be announced at 8%, which is a good start. It's still 6% above where they want to be. But if that does come in at 8%, like you say, there might be some intervention. It might help. 100% mortgages, load of rubbish. They're not what they were before anyway. They're not. That's more of a PR stunt from them. If the inflation comes down by the end of the year and the interest rates come back a little bit, they're never going to go back to what they were. But even if we get down to 4, maybe 3.8, 3.75 for a year, that might steady the ship. But if inflation stays at 8% and at the end of the year and into next year, we're still at 5-6% on mortgage rates, that might make it worse. And who knows? Neither of us know. That's the reality of it. So we'll see.
Yeah, well, I'm looking closely,
which I heard earlier, which was really interesting that I actually hadn't thought about from somebody else I was listening to.
Yeah.
The reason that a lot of people aren't moving at the moment and why the top end is still really struggling, you got to think a lot of people fixed into 5-year rates in 2020 and 2021. So they ain't going to move at the minute and go from a 2% to a 5%. So there's that to think about as well.
Yeah, that's very true. I think everyone talks about hitting 5% inflation by the end of the year like it's a good thing, right? Yeah. I mean, leaving to one side whether I think it will or it won't. 5% inflation is still bad because you get 5% pay rise every year. No, 5% inflation means everyone's still going to be getting poorer unless annual wage rises are higher than that. And if they are, inflation is going to get back up anyway. So this is it's a mathematical catch-22. It's like you can't get out of it. So, the government's going to go, yay, 5% we hit our target. Still shit for the economy. And the bank will not lower the Bank of England will not be lowering interest rates until rates are back down to 2%.
I personally think it will be summer to winter next year before interest rates start to come back. Personally, I think we've got a year or 18 months, and again, then I don't think they'll come back drastically. But I think if you look at it, if 2025 comes round and they're then at 4%, I think there'll be a bit more confidence in the market because people would have got used to it maybe, and they've come back a little bit, but. We could talk about this all day, and ultimately, I wouldn't like to comment, but I just think if you're going to move, you need to move. You can move. Select a decent agent, and also as well, make it relative. Make sure that the one that you're buying, you're not overpaying on that, because I get that all the time. Well, the ones that I'm looking at haven't dropped in price, so why is mine? Yeah, but they will. They've got to at some point.
So tell me, do you agree with the following? Because I say it at the end of most of my live streams, and I want to wrap this up now because I'm coming to now. If a buyer is going to be in a competing situation with another buyer, is it better to always have your mortgage in principle ready when you're making an offer?
Yeah, you wouldn't even get a look in the door.
Exactly. So, guys, go and find a whole of market independent mortgage broker to talk to get your mortgage in principle. If you can't find one you like, you can use my guys. Go to that URL, put your details in. Next, if someone else has got their mortgage in principle as well, so both of you got mortgage principle, the next thing you can do is have your conveyancing lined up. And again, go and find a conveyancer that you like and trust. Do not cut corners on conveyancing. Using a cheap conveyancer is second only in bad decision-making to using a cheap estate agent. And honestly, if you don't believe me, best of luck, but it's a massive mistake. And if you've got both of those things, the final thing, which one of you watching this actually told me you did the other day and it worked, is that you offered with a mortgage in principle, with your conveyancing, and you said that if you had your offer accepted, you would order your search pack that day on the property, which you did, and you got the property. And now you're going through, and it's fantastic. So if you want to have a search pack ready to buy on the day, mhwc.co.uk/property pack. And if you want all of them in one go, all my ducks is my page. So get your ducks in a row. You agree with all of that, right? If a buyer is showing that they've got their best foot forward, right? If they've got everything lined up and ready to go. If you're a seller, that's an attractive buyer, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, if you haven't got an AIP, to be honest, I'd be querying why you're even out viewing houses, because you're wasting your own time as well as probably everyone else's. You might think that you can borrow 200 grand, but where are you getting that from? Your mate in the pub told you that you just times your income by 4. Don't work like that.
Yeah. Okay. But have you got any last minute things you'd like to say?
No, just to think, thanks for having me on. I hope that gives some value to people. And as I say, I hope that, you are looking a bit more at who you're selecting to market your home. And yeah, good luck to everyone.
Fantastic. Well, listen, Scott, I really appreciate it. Sorry it took so long to make this happen. I'm glad we did.
No, I'm glad
We'll
we
do
did.
it again as well. But in the meantime, I'm going to thank everyone very much for coming, all of you. And I've got some videos I recorded today coming out in the next couple of days. But thanks a lot. Follow me on Twitter for daily stuff, moving_Charlie. Otherwise, have a great night. Remember, buy now, but don't overpay. And I'll see you all in the next video. Thanks, Scott. Cheers, everyone.
Take care. Cheers.
Bye-bye.